but I will do my best to take care of my team, and you are all part of my team. And so again, I appreciate it. Before I get going, I do want to recognize, first, we do have the privilege of having both Mayor Harada Kabua here with us today, as well as Senator Paul, both Kwajalein Senator. And so they're here to listen to your concerns and express your listen to your concerns and hopefully help remedy that with our interactions with the garrison. As you know, we're good partners with the government of the RMI and CalGov. We like to do that, and their presence here, I appreciate your presence here, gentlemen. Thank you very much. So with that, before I open it up for general questions, I do want to cover a few things that I think you may be interested in. Right, so we'll talk a little bit about, let's start off by talking about transition. Right, so as you know, we've transitioned LogCap, the primary base operations support contract, from DI Mentum to Vectrus. That transition is mostly complete. It actually finalizes next week, I believe. And so all I ask is you give Vectrus, who from my perspective has done an outstanding job trying to maintain the current workforce to the best of their extent, possible, as well as try to provide or improve the opportunities in which they have not only for expats but for the Marshallese workforce as well. But there's going to be some speed bumps, and we've had some speed bumps, right? We had some issues with the grandfathered employees getting their benefits in place. That's being worked out. It just takes a little bit of time because anything to do with contracts takes a little bit of time. We've had some issues with pay issues. If any of you have had any pay issues, we heard about this from Roy yesterday. There's only a couple. Please work with your supervisors to get those addressed. There should be no reason anyone, if I'm correct, is getting less money per hour than they were before. Okay? If you are, there's a mix-up. It usually has to do with some paperwork wasn't turned in. This is what we heard of yesterday, and it was addressed yesterday, right? Some simple paperwork wasn't submitted. Once it was submitted, it was addressed, and we'll pay back the money that they should have got paid over the last bunch of weeks or months, depending on when the transition happened, right? So if you have any pay issues, the first stop should be with your immediate supervisor, because no one should be getting less money than they did before the transition. Okay. All right. Second thing I want to talk about a little bit about COVID. I know COVID has been a topic of discussion for, 2+ years, right? We've been fairly lucky here in the fact that we still remain one of the only countries in the world to remain COVID-free. So hats off to it's a joint effort between the RMI government as well as the garrison here to really implement the protocols that we put in place to ensure that. Current protocols, if you didn't know, the RMI is reducing to 0 days of quarantine in Honolulu starting the 20th of June, right? 14 days is still required here in Kwajalein once you arrive, either primarily here, about 90% of the people come through Kwajalein, and the ARC facility in Madro, though less people go through there. Most people come through here. So with that, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and open up the floor for any questions. And I know we're always a little slow to get going for questions and answers. Mentioned it's going to be resolved. We've come to an agreement with Vectrus. We understand it's just going to take a little bit of time to implement the contracting language. So some people got to put it in the contract. We got to work out the billing codes. You will be retroactively paid. Right, so you'll get that money. It's just going to take a little bit of time. First of all, I want to make sure we take care of veterans, right? We do have a contract-run hospital, though, right? And so it's not an Army hospital. It's not a DOD hospital. It's contract-run. So we're going to have to work through, again, kind of like the grandfather laws, right? So when the contract was rewritten, some things kind of changed. We have to go back and fix those. So it's going to take a little bit of time. But we got to figure out the right way to do that and the contractual way to do that. So for now, go ahead and I would approach, through your leadership, go talk to the Vectrus leadership. You directly, Bill? Or who? Okay. Okay, and so we'll work that with the hospital to make sure that we can get that stuff resolved. I'm not opposed to relooking at the ferry schedule, right? And so what I'll have to do is I'll have my DES team, that's the security team, do an assessment on the capacity of the 1700 ferry, the 5 o'clock ferry. And if it is getting close to capacity, we'll re-look at looking at alternative ferry schedules. We have a little bit of flexibility in the contract on what we can and can't offer, but typically it's a zero-sum game, meaning if I add another ferry at some point, I typically have to pull a ferry from somewhere else. So that's a hard shell game when we pretty much operate 20-hour operations on the 24-hour operations on the installation, right? But we'll definitely look at it. For the first part, or the second part of the question about meals for when you have to go to the outer islands. So this is mostly for the group that goes to MEC every day. There's about 10 or 12 of you go to MEC. and occasionally some people, some of the workforce, generator mechanics, and those people have to go to some of the other islands too. Talk to your supervisor, because it really depends on the contract that you have, right? If the contract says that you are authorized a meal card, or if you're authorized meals when you go off to those, that's a conversation you can have with your supervisor, because that's a service the DFAC does provide, right? It just has to be coordinated through your supervisor. With the DFAC, meals can be picked up and you can take those with you. If it's not in the contract, it doesn't mean it can't be. That's just a conversation you're going to have with your supervisors. That's something we can look at too. I'll have to go back and look at the policy. A lot of the issues that I hear about are just people don't know the policy. So I'll have to dig into my policy to see if there is a prioritization for boarding from K badge to C badge, which to me makes sense, kind of, right? And so my team will look at it and we'll see if there's a preferential prioritization for who gets access to the ferries. I think for the most part it's been first come, first serve, but I do know a lot of times you get workers getting off shift and they're rushing down there, and if they're not there right on time, they're last in the queue to get on, right? That goes back into my earlier, I'm going to do some analysis to see just how full our ferries are, because if we ever get to the point where our ferries are too full at specific times, that's something in itself that needs to be addressed, right? So there's two pieces of that. First and foremost, we talked about this yesterday on Roy too, right? So the difference between, the fundamental difference is the expats pay into their life insurance policy, right? So they pay money to have a higher policy level. Most of the RMI employees do not. They just get a base level. They get the $10,000 levels, but it costs them nothing, or $1 or something like that. I can't remember. It's not much. The expats pay more. What we talked about yesterday is Vectrus is willing to allow marshalees to pay into higher premiums, but that would require you to pay into. So right now, most people's life insurance is free, right? But they get a smaller level. The expats pay money into it, but they get a higher level. So it really comes down to your personal choice. If you want to pay into that process, you approach your supervisors and have that discussion. So their HRs, so this got addressed yesterday and we're asking about it, the same thing. So we're not opposed to it. We're looking at a way to do that, but that is the reason why there's differences. It's not because the expats get anything special. They pay money to get that extra service.
Most of our positions are either set up, RMI positions are set up at 40 hours or 60 hours. So for instance, the people that work at the generator plants, they work longer hours than the other ones. It's based on the mission requirement, right? The generator shops have to stay open and all. Most of the positions are at 40 hours. If you need to work and it's validated by your supervisors, you can work overtime. You get paid for it. Anything over 40 hours is overtime, okay? And it's paid as straight time. It's not paid as any premium on that, except for the grandfathered ones that are at time and a half. For those, it's 30 because one retired. But everybody else, just like the Americans, by the way, is paid at straight time overtime. So if you work 45 hours, you get 5 hours of overtime at the base pay.
Again, I appreciate you taking the opportunity to come out here. This is probably the largest crowd we've had here on Kwaj for a town hall since I've been here. So thank you very much for taking the time to come out here to express your concerns. This isn't the end. I'm going to release you all. If you have other questions, I'll stick around for a little bit. You can come see me personally. And like I mentioned, any issues you have, concerns, if you have a good idea on how, I'm a big fan of good ideas. If you know a better way to do how you're doing your job, bring it up to your supervisor. And if they're not listening to you, then you come see me or someone on my team. I do appreciate that type of feedback. Other than that, thank you very much for showing up today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Macys shop is an island attractor when it comes to buying souvenirs or daily needs. The Valley and Beyond store is great for souvenirs, household decorations, or even children's toys. The Dive Shop is here for all of your diving needs. They have everything you would need to hit the open ocean and enjoy some time diving. Cole's Mini Shop is also a great souvenir shop, from clothing all the way to island jewelry. The Bike Shop is the handy-dandy go-to store for everything you would need for your bike. You can purchase bikes from lots of different styles. Purchase bike accessories, replacement parts, or even dive gear. Kwaj Threads is another great souvenir shop if you need something to take back home, gift, or even wear around the island. They have different style shirts, hats. Go check out the Macys shop across from the PX. Be sure to check store hours.